It's also wild because the political content creator in question is an anti-genocide content creator, and the arguments they're attacking him for are anti-genocide arguments. So these creators, they're positioning themselves.
What a way to frame it. Well, Hasan's anti-genocide, so why are you critiquing him? Are you aware that Hasan is anti-genocide and you still made a video critiquing him? Does that mean you're pro-genocide? You're probably pro-genocide. That's a train of thought right there.
In opposition to him and his arguments, de facto positioning themselves on the pro-genocide side.
There it is! He did it! I was kind of joking. This is the train of thought. I'm not kidding. Hasan is anti-genocide. You're attacking Hasan. Therefore, you must be pro-genocide. What the... Ooh, falls for this shit.
In the content nuke, you can find just about every type of what we just looked at in terms of manufacturing consent. Ethan spreads atrocity propaganda. He shares the Hamas mass hoax, the same hoax that was used by the Western media.
Okay. All right.
Media, the US government, and the Israeli government to justify a genocide. He cites the same sources that these parties cite when they go on stage to legitimize more military killing machinery shipments to Israel.
And October 7, last year, Hamas committed horrific acts of violence. Cheryl, I thank you for all your
extensively documented instances of violence.
Work to bring to light the horrors of this issue and for your film about what happened on October 7.
In his video, Ethan spreads overt misinformation, just straight up lies about Hezbollah and Ansar Allah, or the Houthis, in order to delegitimize their struggle against Israel's genocide. He cites baseless claims from Saudi state propaganda outlets to attack the Houthis.
He's denying that the Houthis practice slavery? That's new. I've never seen anyone deny that.
The Houthis. He also cites a documentary about Ansar Allah, which he uses as proof of the claim that they brought back slavery, when the documentary wasn't even about the Houthis. It was about the Yemeni government before the Houthi takeover. He spreads long debunked Nakba denialist talking points that have been used for decades to legitimize Israeli colonization of Palestine.
When did Ethan deny the Nakba? What is he even talking about there?
Ethan cites sources that contradict his own claims directly, such as the UN report he claims proves the Hamas mass allegation.
There's a UN report that concludes it happened.
I see.
The report itself denies.
No, it does not deny that. It said that they weren't able it said that they weren't able to
directly, such as the UN report he claims proves the Hamas mass allegation.
There's a UN report that concludes it happened.
The mission team was unable to establish the prevalence of They were unable to establish the prevalence of sexual violence, and concludes that the overall magnitude, scope, and specific attribution of these violations would require a fully fledged investigation. This guy's a idiot, bro. What a stupid thing to put on the screen. What this is saying is that they're saying sexual violence definitely took place. There's tons of credible documentation and witness testimony, but they're unable to establish how widespread it was. That's what it means. And he just claimed that this UN report debunked the notion that there was violence. What a idiot, bro. What an unbelievable interpretation of what the UN report said.
Ethan cites sources that contradict his own claims directly, such as the UN report he claims proves the Hamas mass allegation.
There's a UN report that concludes it happened,
which the report itself denies.
No, it doesn't. It simply doesn't. I mean, this is amazing. This is unbelievable. What an unbelievable thing to say. And he flashes it on the screen. Like, that's insane.
20 minutes in the video smearing a 19-year-old survivor of the US-backed Saudi genocide in Yemen as a terrorist with zero credible evidence. He makes a number of transparently false anti-Semitism accusations.
The kid himself, I don't even know what he's saying here.
Smearing a 19-year-old survivor of the US-backed Saudi genocide in Yemen as a terrorist with zero credible evidence.
The evidence that Ethan presented in his video was the kid himself saying he was a Houthi. That was the evidence. Was the kid himself. Somebody asked him, "Are you a Houthi?" And he said yes. Just like very simply said yes. Okay.
He makes a number of transparently false anti-Semitism accusations, like his claim that Israel's ban on new account signups from Israel was anti-Semitic.
Around the end of the year, when people started talking about anti-Semitism on Twitch, Dan Saltman discovered the Israel ban when he was sent the code proving the block happened.
In reality,
here's where I kind of differ from people on this one. So what people had an issue with was, okay, so Twitch came out and they said that the reason why they banned new accounts from certain IP locations was because there was concern that people were going to broadcast on Twitch very graphic images of death and violence, et cetera, et cetera. To which a lot of people responded, well, you didn't do the same thing for Ukraine, so that implies some sort of a double standard or an anti-Israel bias. There might be an anti-Israel bias within the Twitch staff. I think it's pretty evident at this point that the Twitch staff very much leans very far to the left of the median voter. But what I would say to that is there were I don't know if you guys recall, but in the early stages of the Israel-Gaza conflict, whatever you want to call it, in the immediate aftermath of October 7th, and then when the bombing campaign began in Gaza, which was pretty much right away, there were so many videos that were going around. It was so wide, you could not escape seeing graphic images on your feed every single day. And we just didn't see that level of video documentation when the Ukraine war popped off. I would estimate that there were 1,000 times more videos showing up on people's social media feed during that time. What I question is Twitch claims that they basically just forgot that they did the IP ban. So Twitch is, my recollection, Twitch's explanation of the ban was, okay, we did it to make sure that, we didn't want these graphic images to be live streamed on our platform. And then they just forgot for a year. That strains credulity a little bit. That at that point you're like, wait, what's going on here? How do you just forget that you IP blocked an entire country?
In reality, the ban also affected millions of non-Jews living in Israel and Palestinians in Palestine, as shown in the evidence he himself cites. The IP ban went into effect in both. Like all these Western liberal outlets, Ethan just takes the State Department line of thinking when it comes to terrorism, which his video is ostensibly a crusade against. The entire video is kind of a lie by omission, simply because of everything we just went over. How none of it is a factor, how none of the people viewing the video that are unfamiliar with what's happening would ever come away with his video knowing the full picture, knowing some of the very valid reasons why someone like Hasan might be critical of Israeli atrocity propaganda, or might support groups like the Houthis for their heroic actions in the Red Sea against a genocidal.
The heroic actions by boarding merchant vessels that have nothing to do with the conflict and keeping people hostage for a year. That seems, heroic.
Regime. The biggest issue, I think, is that Ethan manages to do all of this.
Why do leftists do this, man? Why do they do this, bro? Why do they? You don't have to align yourselves with extremely far-right, theocratic, fundamentalist, extremist, Islamist. You don't need to take their side. You're under no obligation to co-sign that shit. It just blows my mind because groups like the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas represent an ideology that could not be more opposed to leftist ideology of liberation. They're so diametrically opposed. But leftists feel this need to align themselves with these groups because they oppose the Israeli state. It just blows my mind. You don't have to you under no circumstances do you have to hand it to Hamas. You don't have to do that. When we talk about the annihilation of nuance in online discourse, this is what we're talking about. Nothing stopping you from having a nuanced view of of course I don't support how Israel has conducted this operation, this war in Gaza with millions displaced and tens of thousands of civilian casualties. And at the same time, I think Hamas has been horrible they've been a horrible governing body for people living in Gaza. Just objectively speaking, how has Hamas made a Palestinian's life in Gaza better? How have they improved their lives? They've received hundreds of billions of dollars in aid? Where did that money go? Why didn't they use that money to build up an infrastructure? Why did they spend so much of that money on tunnels and bombs when they could have been building up infrastructure that would have served the people in Gaza? And why did they take action on October 7th that they knew was going to provoke an extreme reaction from Israel? They did the October 7th attack knowing full well that Palestinians were going to suffer greatly in Gaza. Their gamble was that they were going to draw in outside forces into that conflict. It was like their last shot. They felt like the world had forgotten about the Palestinian problem, and they did October 7th, hoping that outside groups like Iranian proxies or maybe even Iran themselves would directly enter this war and finally, like, you know, take out like the Israeli army and government. That was the calculation. They were willing to put 2 million Palestinians in Gaza in direct danger. They knew Israel was going to react this way. I don't understand why people feel the need to support Hamas. It just blows my mind.
While still calling himself a stalwart ally to the Palestinians.
I've been a stalwart supporter of the Palestinian cause for many years.
Literally true. Literally true. This is so well this is just absurdly documented. Ethan fully advocating for Palestinians and unequivocally condemning IDF and Netanyahu over and over and over and over and over again.
This is what makes liberal Zionism so insidious. He is using humanistic appeals to things like peace and safety, but doing so in a way that distracts from the actual source of the problem. The problem is Zionism and the genocidal Israeli state. That is what's causing these problems. And people that might otherwise be able to understand if...
What were we talking about the death of nuance here? Just the annihilation of nuance? All of this violence is happening exclusively because of the state of Israel.
Presented with the facts of the situation are simply led astray by people like Ethan, where a more right-wing Zionist might put off the average liberal with extremist claims and overtly genocidal language. A liberal Zionist draws you in with the facade of empathy. He wants to appear empathetic, as if he cares for these people, as if he doesn't ascribe to a genocidal ideology. So in order to do that, he has to lie.
When he says subscribe to a genocidal ideology, what he means is not advocate for Israel to dissolve itself. That's what he means. When he says that Ethan subscribes to a genocidal ideology, what he means is Ethan believes that Israel should continue to exist and should have a right to defend itself. That's what he means when he says that.
Lie and roping in otherwise progressive people into a death cult. Aside from this video being a nonsensical genocidal propaganda piece, it's also entirely unoriginal.
I brought up the point, and Ethan himself referenced it in one of his streams recently, but this is why these people are just so ineffective as advocates for Palestinians. They're so ineffective. They're actually like counterproductive. They're destructive in the sense that they actually like actively turn people off from their cause. Because if these groups that are advocating for Palestinians, if they cannot find an ally in Ethan and people like Ethan, a dual citizen of the United States and Israel, if you can't find a way to have Ethan be an ally to you, someone who is willing to unequivocally condemn Israel, then you are like there's no hope for whatever advocacy you want to do. If you're turning off people like Ethan, bro, your movement is right.
The video is a culmination of a months-long campaign against Hasan and all these other creators and Twitch, the company, to smear them as and anti-Semites and get people, in trouble. The campaign began as a response to the suspension of the live streamer Asmongold. Asmongold made some comments that explicitly justified Israel's genocide of Palestinians in Gaza.
I'm not going to cry river when people who have baked into their laws are getting. They come from an inferior culture. I don't feel bad for them. I don't feel sorry for them. I don't care. I don't support them.
Following his suspension for these comments, a community of large content creators, most notably the live streamer Destiny, along with his fan base, rushed to Asmongold's defense, whitewashing and
reasonable position no one wants to say out loud. 14 days. Being cartoon woman, 7 days. Having actual sex on camera, 3 days. Promoting literal and praising the deaths of American citizens. Well, I mean, I don't think it's appropriate to use language like when we're talking about Palestinians. Like, it's such loaded language to say inferior culture and then say it's of course well beyond the pale to say that like Palestinians deserve because they're an inferior culture. Like, we are just it's an outrageous thing to say, right?
In justifying his comments.
Meanwhile, Asmongold gets a 15-day ban for having a spicy take on the war.
So you have someone like Asmongold who breathes the wrong direction, says the wrong thing, and instantly gets banned.
In this situation, I do think it's fair to point out the insane double standard. I mean, that is kind of an insane double standard. Like, without co-signing what Asmongold did, I think what Asmongold did was probably worth a ban, right? I think Asmongold got what was it, like a 2-week ban or like a 3-week ban? And when Hasan like straight up talked about unaliving Rick Scott from Florida, he got a 1-day ban. It's an insane double standard, obviously, right? I mean, I don't know what the length of these bans should be, but I think it is kind of crazy that Asmon got that long, and then we've had these other violations that were either as bad or worse that got like essentially a slap on the wrist.
Situation, one could, if they were to extend the charitability, could say that Asmongold was probably referring to extremists in the Islamic religion.
There's so much more context to what Mudahar said here. In fact, there's a video of Mudahar talking about this where he goes into more detail about it. Like, I feel like the caveat there is really important. Like, he was saying, if we were to extend the maximum amount of charity, this is how we might take what Asmongold said, but he fully condemned Asmongold for saying the thing.
I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think anybody should sit there and be like, I guess a whole group of people deserve to be like, at the end of the day, that doesn't make you any better, you know what I mean? It just doesn't really make you any better than the shitty party out there. But I assume he's probably referring, if I'm being very charitable, to like gay people who like ally with that. It's like, there's gotta be a longer clip than this, dude. Like, I feel like there's at least like 30 seconds from the beginning that I'm missing here, that I just have no idea about it. That is insane. Why would you say that? I don't understand. Why would you prompt it? What the
There's the caveat, guys. Like, the caveat was like, okay, if we're going to be really charitable, then maybe he's talking about like critiquing Hamas's policy with respect to like homosexuals in Gaza. Because there's like obviously a valid critique there. But then he goes on to say like, yeah, this is completely unacceptable. Why would you say it like that? It just makes you sound awful, et cetera, et cetera. That's the nuance. So to say that Mudahar was like whitewashing what Asmongold said is a bit silly.
Extremists in the Islamic religion.
The case of Asmongold's suspension from Twitch was then weaponized against these pro-Palestine voices, most notably Hasan, in an effort to get him deplatformed. To do this, they compiled a number of short clips taken from Hasan's live streams, using them to accuse Hasan of things like supporting and promoting terrorism, allegedly denying October 7th violence, and making anti-Semitic statements. Each one of the clips and their associated accusations can be traced back to prominent posts on Destiny's subreddit. Some of the clips were sourced from videos that criticized Hasan from well over a year ago. These clips were initially hosted on a website created.
I don't understand why that's an issue. A clip happening a year ago? What's the problem with referencing a clip happening a year ago?
By a member of the campaign called HamasPiker.com. Soon after, another website was created, DanClancySucks.com, a reference to the CEO of Twitch, Dan Clancy. Another goal of this campaign was to get him fired from the company. This site also hosts all of these clips with their associated allegations: anti-Semitism, terrorism.
I think this site, which one was the site where is it Twitch or .com?
Promotion and denial. Eventually, several major YouTubers in the usually apolitical commentary sphere made videos that signal boosted these.
We also need to keep in mind that the context here is that like these actions were taken following months of like a really intense harassment campaign from the H3 snark and from members of leftist communities. Like, the wave, the torrent of harassment and abuse that was directed at Ethan and his wife following the breakup with Hasan was one of the most intense campaigns that I've seen in my entire 15 years of doing content.
allegations to millions of viewers. Most of these videos used the same clips, many of them directly citing this smear campaign's website.
There's a website known as danclancysucks.com.
Or there's also a website that's been created called danclancysucks.com that goes over it all.
Another website, Advertise on Twitch, shows a collection of ads playing before the dishonestly framed clips we've looked at, and the contact information of the companies is provided. It auto-loads a preset email with just one click, allowing participants.
And this had an impact. Now Twitch basically forces you to use a content classification label, politics and sensitive social issues, which drastically reduces your ad revenue. So, you know, folks like Hasan caused a bit of an adpocalypse on Twitch.
Participants in the campaign to mass spam these companies with the related smears. There were several motivations behind this campaign. There were direct material incentives. On YouTube for the past few years, there's a big industry that's exploded in popularity, and it's based on a simple concept. Hasan Piker is bad, and he's dumb and bad in a probably. We can call this the Hasanabi dunk video industrial complex. It's common for YouTubers during low view months to join in on the fun and make these types of videos, taking short clips from Hasan's thousands of hours of live streaming to misrepresent what he's saying, usually parroting the exact same talking points they're getting from the same YouTube.
They made these videos because it was low view months in the aggregate.
YouTubers in the same community. They're watching each other's videos and making each other's videos.
I'm sorry, listen. This is something that comes with being one of the biggest political streamers on the planet, okay? The price of relevance is that people are going to scrutinize what you have to say. Hasan should welcome this. If he woke up tomorrow and nobody was making videos about him, then that would indicate to him that his relevance substantially declined. In other words, like, Hasan would probably be upset if people stopped making videos about him. It's just an indication or a demonstration of the fact that he is super relevant in the political space. That is the cost of relevance. It comes with the territory. And, you know, to blanketly dismiss all of these critiques of, to me, that's a bit of a red flag. Like, have you watched all of these videos? Noah Samsen, do you have familiarity with what was said in these videos? At this point, I doubt he even watched Ethan's video. But just to dismiss all of these videos critiquing Hasan as like, oh, well, you know, they just made him because it was low view months. Like, come on, bro. What kind of cope is that?
Kind of like a perpetual cycle of dumb guy slop. It's interesting to see YouTubers that typically cover TikTok drama and gaming content watching each other's videos and making each other's videos. It's kind of like a perpetual cycle of dumb guy slop. It's interesting to see YouTubers that typically cover TikTok drama and gaming content randomly giving their opinions on and geopolitics, but that's the result of.
I don't know if any of these creators gave their firm opinion on the nature of what's happening in Palestine. And furthermore, like, all of these videos cover, or all of these creators have covered in the past, like, drama, especially like Willie Mack and Turkey Tom and Mudahar and Asmongold. It's not like out of character for them to cover this stuff.
Of such an ecosystem. It's not about the politics. It's about making money by attacking a guy they don't like because the guy in question happens to be a political content creator. They have to try to do politics. It's really funny to watch, honestly. It's also wild because the political content creator in question is an anti-genocide content creator, and the arguments they're attacking him for are anti-genocide arguments. So these creators, you know, they're positioning themselves.
What a way to frame it. Well, Hasan's anti-genocide, so why are you critiquing him? Hello? Turkey Tom, are you aware that Hasan is anti-genocide and you still made a video critiquing him? Does that mean you're pro-genocide? You're probably pro-genocide. That's like that's the train of thought right there. You made a video about Hasan. Are you aware that he opposes a genocide? Like, running cover in that kind of way is so fucking, it's kind of gross to me because now you're exploiting this very real catastrophe that's occurring in Gaza. Now you're exploiting that to deflect criticism. Isn't that kind of gross? Like, that's kind of gross, right?
In opposition to him and his arguments, de facto positioning themselves on the pro-genocide side.
There it is! He did it! That was like parody for me a moment ago. I was kind of joking. I swear to you, I did not pre-watch this. And then he did the thing. He literally did it. This is the train of thought. I'm not kidding. Hasan is anti-genocide. You're attacking Hasan. Therefore, you must be pro-genocide. What the did? Who falls for this shit? Who falls for this shit?
You know, anti-genocide is pro-genocide. It's quite the precarious predicament they've placed themselves in. Do they realize it? No. Do they care? Probably not. But that's what's happening. You know, that's what they're doing. The success.
Unbelievable, bro. This is unbelievable. This video is so much worse than I thought it would be.
Of Ethan's video, which garnered over 3 million views in its first month, is a testament to the algorithmic viability of Hasan bad content. Get in front of a politically illiterate American audience and call a pro-Palestine influencer a
Promoting hateful music videos.
Propaganda videos.
Propaganda video.
collect big fat.
Wait, did you even refute that? Like, he literally did that. He doesn't even deny that he did that. Hasan himself called Hezbollah a designated group. I don't even think he denies that.
AdSense check. That's how it goes. And Ethan knew it would do well too and made sure to get a sponsor for the video.
Thank you to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this video.
Which was a VPN company that happens to be owned by an Israeli billionaire.
Of course. Of course.
Hi.
Of course. Of course. Did you know that ExpressVPN is owned by a Zionist? Did you know that?
With a history of funding and supporting the IDF. He's not a Zionist though, apparently. Apparently he's not a Zionist and he's pro-Palestine.
I've been a stalwart supporter of the Palestinian cause for many years.
A few years ago, Destiny was banned from Twitch. Since then, he has repeatedly attempted to be...
Yes, not taking an ExpressVPN endorsement is going to materially improve Palestinians' lives. Okay.
Reinstated on the platform, and the latest attempt by using the campaign was probably the closest he's ever been in terms of putting pressure on the platform.
We're tired of your site changing the rules every week. Nobody knows what's going on. Get your shit together, unban Destiny, and make a site that people actually want to go to.
Dedicated the last 2 weeks of my life basically to Steve's cause.
You're talking about the Twitch thing?
Yeah, destroying Twitch.
Some of the motivations for the campaign are political in nature, though, obviously. You know, Hasan Piker is one of the most prominent pro-Palestine voices on YouTube, and this campaign has been orchestrated by Zionists. The website that started this campaign, hamaspiker.com, doubled as a donation page for a prominent Zionist organization. Since learning about the existence of Israel on October 7th of 2023, Destiny has positioned himself as its #1 cheerleader, showing up to debates to defend the genocidal apartheid state using Zionist talking points and denying that is taking place. On the Lex Friedman Israel-Palestine debate, Destiny justified Israel's slaughter of 4 Palestinian children in the Gaza beach bombings using talking points plucked directly from IDF spokespeople.
Those kids weren't just on the beach, as is often stated in articles. Those kids were literally coming out of a previously identified Hamas compound that they had operated from. They literally did. You could Google it.
With all due respect, you're such a fantastic moron. It's terrifying.
I left Finkelstein's iconic response in there because he is 100% correct. The events of that day were witnessed by dozens of journalists. There is no real dispute as to what happened except from, of course, the party that slaughtered the children, which is Israel, and in turn its propagandists like Destiny.
A group of POS, Hutch, does it show it here? Jesus Christ. That's a good heads up right there. That's a good viewer right there.
It sounds really shitty, but I think that Israel should just drop its borders about where it is now, and basically Palestinians can go live in another place. That's really shitty, but that's about where I'm at.
It's this guy and his community who are the source for every one of the arguments that Ethan makes in his video. Do stalwart advocates for Palestinians normally collaborate with advocates for Palestinian? No, they do not, in my opinion. Destiny's podcast co-host Dan Saltman, the other main driver behind this campaign and the one spearheading the creation of these smear websites, is also a Zionist. Saltman promoted pro-Israel organizations like the ADL and stopped anti-Semitism, and Zionist politicians like Richie Torres, who shared and boosted the campaign. He consistently weaponizes Zionism.
I think it's really telling in these circles that Zionist is used as a pejorative when it's really kind of neutral at this point, but it's just a full-on pejorative. It happens sometimes in my Twitter posts. I'll have sometimes people respond to something that I tweeted. It just happened recently. Somebody was like, "Are you aware that this person is a Zionist?" I think it was about I was talking about The Last of Us. I made a post about The Last of Us 2. Neil Druckmann recently indicated that they might be done with The Last of Us, which I'm kind of bummed. I felt like I definitely wanted to see more of that story. But I just tweeted, it was an innocuous post, you know, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of bummed, you know, the story wrapped up kind of nicely in part 2, but I would like to see like a full trilogy just rounded out. And yeah, I had somebody in my chat that was like, Hutch, are you aware that Neil Druckmann is a Zionist? And that it was kind of like an allegory to what he witnessed in Israel. And I was like, yeah, everybody knows that at this point. And what and like what's the main lesson from The Last of Us 2? It's like, you know, you can become without getting into spoilers. Maybe I shouldn't say it. Whatever. Like the theme of The Last of Us 2 is about revenge, and it's about like the toll that revenge takes on you. And if you're using The Last of Us 2 as an allegory to what's been happening in Israel and Palestine for decades now, and the ultimate message you're sending is like, you know, revenge can be quite destructive, and you're complaining about that. Did you know that Neil Druckmann is a Zionist?
Zionist talking points, like asserting that any reference to Zionism is actually just coded anti-Semitic language. The implication there being, of course, that criticizing Israel and Zionism is inherently anti-Semitic. That's a very common Zionist tactic. It's like the Zionist tactic, in the West at least. Perhaps the most significant motivation.
I think Lonerbox made a really good point. He was talking about it one time, and he said that it's not that people that use Zionist as a pejorative, for example, are consciously practicing anti-Semitism, but it's very easy to go down a rabbit hole where you sort of unintentionally land on an anti-Semitic perspective, which I think is probably quite accurate for a lot of people. Or it's not like they're, you know, and it is true that like staunch Israel defenders will oftentimes dismiss any criticism of Israel as anti-Semitic. That definitely happens, but I do think that Lonerbox was correct that sometimes people unintentionally land there.
Though, and indicative of the sort.
Like Ilhan Omar is a really good example. You know, shortly after she was elected, or maybe a year after she was elected for the first time, she tweeted something about like, it's all about the Benjamins, baby. She quote retweeted I don't know, I'm going to make something up. It was maybe an article or a post about AIPAC. And she said, it's all about the Benjamins, baby. She unintentionally stumbled on an anti-Semitic trope there. And in her credit, she walked it back and apologized and said that she would work with people to better inform her about, you know, anti-Semitic tropes.
Sort of unserious nature of this campaign is just spite. These people all seem to have deep personal vendettas against Hasan and these other creators that should give one pause when considering the seriousness of the campaign that they're running.
God, he's so...
I mean, I feel like you should, like, it's also worth mentioning the deep personal vendetta that Hasan fans and Denims fans and Mike from PA fans and all these, you know, the deep personal vendetta that they have for Ethan and his wife. Noah here just doesn't even recognize the role that any of that played.
Cringe. He's like such a cringe loser. I would pay we'd raise $1 million to send this dude to go fight in Yemen, and then all of us would volunteer for the Navy. Holy shit, he's such a cringe.
Destiny has for almost 5 years just obsessively talked about Hasan on his channel. He's made video after video about him. The frequency of these videos increased.
I mean, Hasan is a bit... I mean, Hasan and Hasan's audience are very obsessed with Destiny. It is said, and Ethan said, that Hasan, when he collaborates with other creators, it is alleged that he regularly, like, you know, tells them to stay away from Destiny. And Ethan said that early in their podcast, he, you know, behind the scenes, he said, you know, just like never touch Destiny's content, never react to it, never even blah, 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 blah.
After Destiny was banned from Twitch.
It's no secret that there's bad blood between Destiny and Hasan, but it goes both ways.
In the span of time since then, he has uploaded almost 80 videos about Hasan out of a total of like 450 videos. So that's at least 1/5 of his working life spent talking about Hasan. In contrast, in the same span of time, Hasan has uploaded over 1,200 videos, and he's talked about Destiny a total of 5 times. 5. 4 of them have come in the last few months while covering Destiny's role in this smear campaign and the credible allegations of sex crimes against him. So that's less than 1% of his coverage. This isn't an internet beef. Hasan has a stalker. With Ethan, I feel like I can kind of spot the moment that he started going into this direction, which was the moment that people started calling him racist for saying racist stuff. It was one argument he made where he compared...
Such as? What racist thing did Ethan say?
Jewish Voice for Peace anti-Zionist activist to capos.
There was Jewish collaborators with Nazis.
Ethan, don't do that, please. Don't say that the Jews.
That the point he was making was not, he was not conflating Jews who advocate for Palestinians with capos. He wasn't conflating it. He was saying that in any conflict, you can find people on any side of the aisle that hold views that you support, was his point.
Whose Voice for Peace are akin to capos. Like, that's...
I'm telling you that the mere existence of Jewish voices is not a leg to stand on. I don't understand.
You can't, like, he's making the point that, like, because Hasan is saying, like, well, what about these Jewish people over here that are like anti-Zionist or are super pro-Palestinian, like, as if to suggest that the existence of these people legitimizes, in and of itself, legitimizes his argument. And Ethan's saying, no, their mere existence is not a leg to stand on. You can't point to them and just be like, see, this means I'm right, which is obviously correct.
Understand that.
The chat started calling him a Zionist freak because that's a Zionist freak thing to say. And then since then, he's sort of constructed an entire mind prison around the idea that he's not racist and anyone calling him racist is actually the real racists. And because Hasan's community is politically oriented and is able to spot the racist rhetoric in question, that means they're all extremists and Hasan is leading them, so he's an extremist. And that Hasan and them are all the problem, and that he's a perfect angel, which is the direction.
Is he saying that Hasan is racist against Jewish people? Is that what he's saying?
And he's taken, it seems like.
My only crime is wanting a two-state solution instead of one, and thinking it's not okay to kill Israeli civilians. That's it. That's why they're calling me a Nazi Zionist.
And now he's just totally gone off the rails. He spends most of his time cowering in fear behind Instagram stories that people can't respond to. Every single one.
He already said he would debate Hasan publicly if Hasan agreed to watch his video on his stream. I don't understand why that's unreasonable.
One of the uploads on,
like, why would you want to debate someone on the contents of a video that you made if you don't even have any assurance that they watched your video? It seems like a reasonable ask.
His personal YouTube channel in the last number of months have been targeted towards Hasan. He spent most of his live podcast talking about Hasan and calling him a terrorist and whatnot.
What is this?
I mean, why do you think Ethan has devoted this much time to Hasan recently? I mean, why do you think that is? Do you think maybe it's because Hasan's community has like torn Ethan to shreds for the last year? And Ethan is correct. The reason why they're upset is that he believes in a two-state solution instead of a one-state solution. The reason why they tore Ethan to shreds, even though Ethan himself called what's happening in Gaza a genocide, he called it a genocide, to my knowledge, is because Ethan doesn't hold the position that Israel should dissolve itself in response to October 7th. That is legitimately the reason they don't like him.
Bro, I have not seen a single one of his Instagram stories. I didn't know he was posting about me this much. Oh,
wow, there's no way that's true.
Oh my God, every day? Every single day?
Well, imagine waking up every single day and then you check your social media feed and you have hundreds or thousands of people calling you a Zionist genocidal pig. Like, what would that do to you psychologically?
No. There was that one Instagram story where Ethan Klein was having to evacuate due to the wildfires or something, and he managed to make the post about Hasan and about how Hasan probably thinks it's awesome that his house might burn down while his family is in the background trying to evacuate the wildfires. Just wild. Ethan Klein has repeatedly denied any association with this campaign and Destiny or his community. That may have something to do with the recent credible allegations that Destiny is a sex criminal. But this is false. Ethan has been caught on his live podcast browsing the Destiny subreddit for arguments to use to...
People could have linked him, like, posts from Reddit. Like, there's no issue with Ethan plucking clips from any subreddit. The fact that it comes from Destiny on occasion is not some kind of an indication that Ethan is secretly in cahoots with Destiny. Just like a pretty deranged thing to accuse him of.
To attack Hasan. Leaked Discord logs show Dan Saltman admitting to exchanging emails with Ethan and the H3 team personally during the camp.
And? So, what's your point?
Campaign. And even if there wasn't evidence of direct communication.
Did you know that Ethan associated himself via email correspondence with Dan Saltman? We're going to blow the lid right off this thing.
And, the far more important connection is that Ethan is saying the exact same things, using the same out of context clips that everyone else used to call Hasan a terrorist.
What clips are out of context? Please show me.
It's been a group effort. That's just what it is. So just a few final thoughts here. Zionism is Nazism. It's an ethnic supremacist.
I mean, we just spoke a moment ago about like unintentionally doing an anti-Semitism. I don't know. There's various numbers in terms of like what percentage of Jewish people consider the existence of Israel to be a big part of their faith. There's some varying numbers, but it's somewhere between like 70 and 90%. So he's claiming that 70 to 90% of Jewish people are Nazis. There's a lot to unpack with that accusation right there.
Expansionist colonial ideology. You can't have Zionism without an ethnic cleansing. That's the end goal of the project. It's what it is. Palestinians are there, and for the Zionist project to be complete, they have to go. Starve them out, bomb them, destroy everything they need to live. Those are the methods. Those are what they're employing as we speak. And like Nazism, Zionism cannot be defeated through reform or debate. It must be destroyed from the outside through efforts made by the Palestinian people, the Palestinian resistance, and coalitions of allies. As history has shown, the downfall of these kinds of racist ideologies is possible, but Zionists cannot be a part of this process. They're Zionists. They uphold Zionism by spreading Zionist propaganda and spending all their time and effort attacking anti-Zionists, even as those anti-Zionists are actively fighting against a that Zionism is the ideological pretext for. In the case of liberal Zionists like Ethan Klein, using his weird personal Zionist crash out as a jumping off point to educate people about the ideology that he adheres to is a great use of time, I think. And Bad Empanada has done a fantastic job with that. His videos have reached pretty wide audiences and exposed them to the reality and history of the genocidal Zionist project. That's a really good thing. That's a really important thing that he's doing. And I think many of you can probably also help out with that. Most of you have smartphones and cameras and TikTok, so go ahead, start posting about it, spread the word. Aside from being a morally good thing to do, it's also becoming sustainable. It's algorithmically viable. The Ethan Klein crash out industrial complex is booming, and we can harness it as a propaganda machine to expose Zionism for the genocidal ideology that it is.
Oh my God. I don't know. I just don't know how to break it to these people. Like, Israel is not going anywhere. It is not going anywhere. There was a time where maybe there was a danger of that happening in the first 40 years after its inception, but especially now in the 21st century, I think people that cling to this hope that they can somehow at some point eradicate Israel off the face of the planet is just it's the reason why they use Zionist as a pejorative. To me, when I hear the term Zionist, I don't even know what it means anymore. Zionist was a relevant term at the turn of the century, the end of the 19th century, the beginning of the 20th century. It was a relevant term in the post World War II era when Israel was first formed. But it has been a sovereign state now for how many years? 68 years? 1948, 52 plus 27 years? 77 years. And Israel has successfully staved off multiple invasions, and now they've begun the process of normalizing relations with a lot of these Arab states. Obviously, October 7th and the subsequent conflict that followed has interrupted that process, but it's going to happen. At some point, they're going to have normalized relations with probably most of the neighboring Arab states, and it's not going anywhere. It is not going anywhere. So I don't know what it means to say you're a Zionist or an anti-Zionist. Part of the reason why, I think part of the reason why they're and I'm not absolving the Israeli government for their part in how the peace process has petered out many times over the decades. They are in part like responsible for the fact that, you know, Palestinians still to this day don't have their own state. You know, one big reason why there hasn't been a lasting peace that was established in that region was because of people rejecting the idea that Israel should continue to exist. One of the reasons why Arafat walked away from the Camp David Accords, the second one, I think, was he figured that if he were to make these concessions and recognize the state of Israel, that his own people would assassinate him. So, you know, and Hamas, like, what, you know, the way that they recruit people is by, you know, capitalizing on people's very real trauma, like Palestinians' very real trauma in Gaza, and then telling them, like, you have the power. If we rise up, we can get rid of the Jewish people in this region. We can end the state of Israel. We can take over and govern through Islamic law and kill or expel every Jew in the region, which of course they can't. They're never going to be able to do that. But if you ask, like, you know, like the average like Hamas fighter, I guarantee you, like 99% of them fully believe that they will eventually be victorious in the struggle against Israel. And it's just not going to happen. Isn't going to happen.